We begin with California Governor Gavin Newsom, who spent the weekend trying to avoid responsibility as the fires were still burning by dropping by the Pod Save America podcast for an attempt to clean up his own image.
I want to know the answers. So I'm the governor of California. I want to know the answer. I've got that question. I can't tell you about how many people, what happened.
We don't have to play the whole thing, just the first 30 seconds. Watch how he's finally wanting to have his people be responsible. Go ahead, Rob.
If you incite violence, I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account.
Okay.
That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated.
Megyn Kelly and Patrick Bet-David just unleashed a political blitzkrieg on Gavin Newsom, tearing through his polished persona like a hurricane through a house of cards. Their takedown was equal parts scathing wit and unapologetic truth, exposing the California governor as more style than substance. A PR campaign in a tailored suit, held together with hair gel and lofty soundbites. They didn't just critique his record, they dismantled it, piece by piece, from the glittering facades of failed policies to the glaring spotlight of his double standards. This wasn't commentary, it was a televised reckoning. If Newsom's reflection had any clarity left, it's now shattered into political shards.
Dignity. That's what I was missing. There was no dignity. It just looked like a man desperate for attention. And whenever DeSantis was scoring points on him, he would interrupt over and over to try to talk over the points as just a, that's like a middle school debate tactic, which is pathetic and not.
This was a catastrophic moment in his career. And now people are sitting there worried and saying, are we ready if an earthquake happens? I honestly don't care if you're straight, gay, lesbian. I have no interest in any of that stuff. But if we're hiring you and you're talking about you want to increase diversity, that's not your job. Your job is to protect the family.
Megyn Kelly didn't just enter the conversation. She set it ablaze with a smirk and a scalpel. When she zeroed in on Gavin Newsom, it wasn't your typical political takedown. It felt more like a high society roast served with a side of razor-sharp critique and velvet-gloved disdain. No shouting, no theatrics, just a single arched eyebrow and the kind of precision that comes from years of cutting through spin like a hot knife through butter. With the poise of a seasoned anchor and the unspoken wariness of someone tired of political smoke and mirrors, she peeled back Newsom's image, layer by glossy layer. Beneath the camera-ready charm, a baffling disconnect from the reality most people actually live.
Gavin Newsom, now he's a far left progressive, and Bill Maher just came out in favor of him. But he's the most radical Democrat in America. Honestly, his politics may be left of the squads. He would be a hard no. I don't care how good his hairline is. They're going to say no. It's not.
Megyn didn't hold back. She called Gavin Newsom the shampoo commercial of American politics. Not a governor, not a leader, just a walking, talking ad spot, all glossy production and zero policy depth. According to her, his press conferences feel less like public service and more like behind-the-scenes footage from a fashion editorial. Half high-gloss Vogue spread, half incoherent word salad. It wasn't about substance, it was about shadow angles and cheekbone lighting. She painted a picture of a man who seemed more invested in camera-ready perfection than problem-solving, every appearance looking like it was coordinated by a glam squad with a better resume than half of Hollywood's red carpet team. Then came the scathing highlight reel of his now infamous lockdown hypocrisy. Megyn tore into it with a kind of precision that leaves a mark. Because nothing says man of the people quite like slipping into an elite, five-star restaurant while the rest of the state was told to triple mask and huddle under patio heaters in the pouring rain. She didn't even need to mention the name. Everyone knew it. That French Laundry dinner has become political folklore, practically etched into Newsom's public image like a forehead tattoo. But it wasn't just the fine dining that raised eyebrows. It was the smug grin, the untouchable air, the rules for thee, not for me vibe that has come to define the Newsom brand.
Press conference, I met with some of those leaders. We had my team start talking to local leaders, saying what's going on. Our state,
and you weren't getting straight answers from
I was getting
leaders.
Different answers. When you start getting different answers, then I'm not getting the actual story.
So you decided the thing to do would be to go on Pod Save America to talk about it, because in the end, it's all about you. This is another David Muir, folks. He is just as vain and worried about his image.
She zeroed in on his now infamous emergency hair appointment with a kind of biting precision that only comes from being completely fed up with the double standards. while everyday Californians were being told to stay home, some unable to even say goodbye to dying loved ones. Newsom was out getting his fade cleaned up like he had a photo shoot with GQ on the calendar. Megyn didn't just call it out, she dissected it. To her, it wasn't about grooming. It was about priorities. The man seemed less interested in flattening the curve than flattening his cowlick, one vanity trip at a time.
What is kind of weird on the playbook, the pages taken out of the playbook, is his current play is the play to stay governor of California. It's not the play to become the president. Who is he winning over?
The moderate play or the radical play?
It's a radical play.
Yeah, right. They're kind of getting mixed up.
But to get the moderate play is for being a president. The radical play is to stay governor of California. It doesn't make any sense.
But how do you win the primary?
She took aim at his climate change crusade, not because she's against protecting the planet, but because Gavin Newsom has somehow turned environmental policy into a Hollywood thriller. In his cinematic universe, the villain is your gas stove and the hero is him, heroically plugging in his Tesla as California's power grid flickers like a dying light bulb. Megyn called it what it was: performative green virtue signaling, wrapped in designer optics and lit by solar-powered fairy lights. Only a man living in a sprawling estate, powered, as she put it, by guilt and high-grade hypocrisy, could demand Californians give up air conditioning while he sips peanut under decorative lanterns at backyard soirees. She didn't stop there. She went after the persona he's quietly trying to sell, America's backup president, waiting in the wings like a political understudy who travels with his own spotlight and cue cards. Megyn painted him as a man so enamored with his reflection, he probably kisses the mirror good morning before texting his PR team. His ambition, she said, wasn't driven by ideas, but by image. It wasn't leadership. It was a thirst trap wrapped in political rhetoric. And then came the dagger. With a wry smile, she pointed out how California's once glittering allure had sparked a mass exodus, an unplanned migration not seen since the gold rush. Except this time, no one was rushing in. They were rushing out, and in her words, Newsom was the guy who inherited a mansion, torched it, and blamed the neighbors for not bringing a hose.
Governor of California, the great state of California, which he's destroyed the last 4 years under his reign, he's being asked, what happened for this $24 billion that you asked us taxpayers to fix homelessness? What happened to that money? Here's the exchange. Go ahead, Rob.
To determine whether the money that's being plowed into homelessness is being well spent.
One of the vexing issues that was highlighted in the audit was local, and each city and county has different strategies and approaches. We've tried to level set that.
I'm sorry, Governor, I didn't hear responses to either of those questions. Do you acknowledge whether the money that the state isn't doing enough to ensure that the money is being well spent?
The audit did not support.
By the time Megyn wrapped up, the audience didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or start house hunting in Texas. One thing was certain, she didn't just poke holes in Gavin Newsom's polished public persona. She tossed it into a meat grinder fueled by common sense and served the results on a silver platter of unapologetic truth. Then came Patrick Bet David. And if Megyn was the precision scalpel, Patrick was a full-force sledgehammer. He didn't come for laughs, he came for accountability. A man who's built real businesses from the ground up, Patrick brought the kind of heat only someone allergic to incompetence could deliver. His roast wasn't performance, it was a PowerPoint presentation with bite, armed with receipts, reality checks, and a mounting frustration shared by millions. He likened Newsom's California to a failed tech startup, overhyped, oversold, and hemorrhaging credibility. And every time someone points out the obvious decline, Gavin flashes that camera-ready grin and rolls out another glossy campaign, hoping no one notices the foundation crumbling beneath. But as Patrick made clear, the public isn't buying the pitch anymore. If Newsom were a CEO, Patrick argued, he'd have been ousted by the board, sued by shareholders, and permanently ghosted by LinkedIn. He slammed Gavin's obsession with optics, joking that the governor spends more time rehearsing his eyebrow arch than reviewing the state's economic data. In Patrick's words, Newsom doesn't hold cabinet meetings, he holds mirror rehearsal.
In any event, they're melting down on the left over what Gavin Newsom is doing, which is kind of fun. I mean, it almost makes me want to see it continue, but not really, because unlike Bill Maher, who definitely has a touch of the TDS, but can be fair to Republicans, the way Gavin Newsom governs is truly radical. I mean, There's nothing fair about the way he runs California when it comes to fairness to
Patrick didn't hold back when he torched the idea that Gavin Newsom, a man presiding over one of the worst homelessness crises in modern America, could seriously pitch himself as a national leader. It was, as Patrick put it, like watching the captain of the Titanic apply to pilot a space shuttle, tone-deaf, reckless, and spectacularly unqualified. He drilled into the mass business exodus from California like a CEO reading off a quarterly failure report. Tesla, gone. Oracle, gone. Thousands of small businesses, obliterated. Patrick quipped that if Newsom were running a private company and hemorrhaged clients at this scale, the board wouldn't just fire him. They'd revoke his access, delete his lodging credentials, and install facial recognition to keep him from getting back in. His economic strategy, Patrick compared it to lighting a pile of taxpayer cash on fire, filming it in slow motion, and framing it as performance art. Then came education. According to Patrick, under Newsom's leadership, California's public schools have become a cautionary tale masquerading as policy, where activism replaces academics, test scores nosedive, and accountability is replaced with slick marketing. He slammed the state's oppressive tax system, likening it to a high-end protection racket. In Patrick's words, Newsom treats taxpayers like hostages trapped in a luxury hotel, charging them more every year for fewer services, while insisting they should feel grateful just to stay. He even joked that opening a lemonade stand in California now requires a business license, a climate compliance review, a biodegradable straw audit, and possibly a contract with a vegan lemon supplier. And crime. Patrick didn't hold back there either. He said Newsom's soft-on-everything policies have turned once thriving cities into open-air survival shows. In today's California, the only ones thriving, Patrick mused, are TikTok influencers, looters, and raccoons. Everyone else, they're one bad law away from booking a one-way ticket out.
He's sided over and over with that lunatic, Scott Wiener, the one that Carrie and Britt have been chasing down all over California on his radical trans ideology. I think he's only rejected that guy one time on his most crazy trans agenda. And now he wants to come out and say like, oh yeah, boys shouldn't be in girls' sports. Like Charlie said, well, what have you done about it?
Patrick's roast wasn't just a critique of Gavin Newsom's leadership. It was a full-blown expose on the illusion of competence. He didn't attack the man as much as the brand, the carefully curated persona built on glossy charm and high-end optics. In Patrick's eyes, Gavin's greatest political achievement wasn't passing legislation or solving real problems. It was selling the idea that charisma could somehow substitute for results. California, he said, isn't collapsing because of a lack of talent or resources. It's drowning in Newsom's overconfidence and overexposure. It's not broken pipes or broken systems. It's a leadership style that favors photo ops over problem solving. To drive it home, Patrick painted a vivid picture. California is like a luxury cruise ship captained by a man who throws exquisite champagne brunches and knows how to charm a crowd, but has absolutely no idea how to steer. And every time the ship scrapes another iceberg, Gavin doesn't check the wheel. He blames climate change, the GOP, the passengers, or even the weather forecast. But the final analogy was what really landed. If Gavin Newsom were a brand, Patrick said he'd be that sleek, expensive-looking cologne bottle. Beautiful packaging, massive marketing budget, but when you finally take off the lid, it smells like panic and poor decisions. It wasn't cruelty, it was comedy as clarity. Megyn and Patrick understood the roast wasn't just about jabs and punchlines. It was about peeling back the carefully staged image to reveal the inconvenient truth. Good lighting doesn't lower crime rates, catchphrases don't balance budgets, and no one can live off a perfect hair day.
Governor of California, the great state of California, which he's destroyed the last 4 years under his reign, he's being asked, what happened for this $24 billion that you asked us taxpayers to fix homelessness? What happened to that money? Here's the exchange. Go ahead, Rob.
To determine whether the money that's being plowed into homelessness is being well spent.
One of the vexing issues that was highlighted in the audit was local, and each city and county has different strategies and approaches. We've tried to level set that.
I'm sorry, Governor, I didn't hear responses to either of those questions. Do you acknowledge whether the money that the state isn't doing enough to ensure that the money is being well spent?
The audit did not surprise me. The state has advanced unprecedented investments, you're correct, and unprecedented interventions demanding more accountability with state money at the local level.
What does that mean, buddy?
It's like, at what point are the people going to say enough is enough and stop putting these type of people in power? It's your money, California. It's your money. And where's it going? Nothing is getting done. The streets are horrible.
They both knew exactly what game Gavin Newsom was playing. Stay visible, stay polished, and when the house starts burning, casually point at someone else's match. But the act was wearing thin. The carefully constructed facade, designer suit, scripted sound bites, Instagram angles was beginning to crack. Megyn zeroed in on his favorite pastime, scolding the rest of America while his own state teeters like a Jenga tower built from IOUs, empty slogans, and virtue signals. She mocked how he throws shade at other governors while ducking every reflective surface that might show him the consequences of his own policies. In her words, Newsom behaves like a substitute teacher handing out detention slips to the principal, bossy, clueless, and strangely confident. Patrick, never one to pull punches, echoed her with scathing precision. He likened Newsom's White House ambitions to a guy who burned down his own kitchen and then applied to be head chef at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. If there's ever a documentary titled How Not to Run a State, Patrick joked, Newsom would be both the narrator and the cautionary tale. In his view, the only thing Gavin's really qualified to lead is a masterclass on political branding, specifically how to sell cheap bones as leadership. But their roast wasn't just entertainment. It was a wake-up call aimed directly at voters, taxpayers, and the millions wondering how a state blessed with perfect weather, stunning coastlines, and world-class innovation ended up feeling like a dystopian theme park. Megyn couldn't help but laugh at the irony of Newsom's national rebrand tour. After turning California into a political reality show where no one gets the final rose, she compared him to a Netflix original that keeps getting renewed, not because it's good, but because someone in the boardroom really liked the post.
In the school system of California, no matter what part of California you're in, why would you do that? So you don't trust the system. Number 4, if you choose to start a small business in California, do you think they've cleaned the homelessness? They got $24 billion of taxpayer money and homelessness just went up. In America, we have 770,000 of homeless people in America. 181 of it is in California. This man has been the governor for 6 years, the lieutenant governor prior to that for 8 years. His policies have destroyed.
Patrick didn't miss a beat. He quipped that if Gavin Newsom ran a gym, people would walk in, see treadmills ablaze, dumbbells melting, and still be handed a membership contract, now with a 300% price hike and a smug smile. And when customers asked questions, Gavin would appear on TV, perfectly lit, confidently assuring them everything was going great. And maybe suggest that if the workout feels like chaos, it's probably your attitude that needs adjusting. For both Patrick and Megyn, this wasn't personal. It was political theater with real-world consequences. They weren't just targeting the man, they were tearing into the glossy illusion that good lighting and good leadership are somehow the same thing. In a world where filters fix flaws and headlines hide holes, they argued that Newsom had become the poster child for style over substance. Megyn and Patrick continued trading satirical jabs like heavyweight punches. Each line wasn't just a roast, it was a reality check. To them, Gavin was the final boss in a video game where charisma tries to pass for competence. And they came armed not just with jokes, but with receipts, data points, and enough raw truth to make the foundation of that carefully curated image start to tremble.
Gavin Newsom was basically almost burned alive. The governor of California. Take a listen.
We went up to one of the canyons on the fire, sitting there feeling we're a good quarter mile away. I'm not making this up, video to bear it out. All of a sudden, we see an ember, hits the tree goes on fire, 100 seconds. God is my witness, may have been 90 seconds. The house is in flames. I have embers of flames. They're taking it off my hair, and we're running back into the car. Winds are swirling around. Garbage cans were in the air, and we were getting the hell out of there.
Okay, why is he saying his God is my witness and
somewhere behind the golden curtain of California, you could almost hear the PR team scrambling to rewrite the next spin cycle. Megyn circled back with surgical precision, pointing out that Gavin Newsom's true talent wasn't leadership, it was auditioning. Every press conference, every carefully choreographed photo op, every blame-shifting statement played less like governance and more like a screen test for a role he hadn't earned but desperately wanted. She likened his approach to selling broken promises wrapped in high-definition lighting, offering hope with a polished grin while the foundation beneath him quietly crumbled. glamour without grit. Patrick jumped right back in, saying Newsom's leadership was like a luxury sports car with no engine, sleek, stylish, wildly expensive, but completely motionless unless someone else does the heavy lifting. To Patrick, if America handed the keys to someone like that, we'd soon be paying triple for potholes and being told to be grateful for the privilege. Together, he and Megyn weren't just roasting Gavin, they were tearing down the set of an entire political stage play built on curated chaos and cinematic illusion.